Ohio State improved to 6-1 after a 21-17 win over Nebraska. And as usual, it's time to grade the starting quarterback, Will Howard. 13 of 16 for 221 and 3 touchdowns and an interception plus 14 yards rushing. Stephon, grade QB1.
I give him a B, and this is probably I don't know the number off the top of my head. There's just a lot of games where he plays an A game, and it drops a grade or two because he makes the mistake, right? Oregon, there was the fumbled snap and then slide at the end of the game. Iowa, he had some picks. Michigan State game, he had some shaky play there in the first half. And in this game, he was playing about as perfect. To our texters, I was sending that, he was playing almost a perfect game considering how bad the offensive line in front of him was, the way he used his feet, the way he threw the ball. Everything was effective that Will Howard was doing. And then when your veteran quarterback late in the game needs to put together a drive when you have the lead, he throws an interception. I believe that's the interception that led to Nebraska taking the lead, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Well, no, it wasn't.
No, that was when they got stopped at the goal line.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. Well, anyways, it could have cost them points, and it could have been very costly when you throw a pick on the other side of the field and they could take it down to goal-to-go situation immediately. We've talked about it a lot in the pod. Throughout the early part of the season, we felt like the interceptions, some of them unlucky, some of them just great plays by the defense. But it's starting to become a trend where every game there's a turnover or a mistake that you're just looking at being like, man, if you don't do that, this game's a lot easier than it is. Now, I know Ohio State was only a 4 at that point, and Nebraska was still within striking distance, but he's playing A games and continues to have a mistake or two where you're just sitting there scratching your head like, man, if you just don't do that, if you just play clean, you win this game probably by a wider margin than you did.
You know who that sounds like? Kyle McCord. Andrew Grady, Will Howard.
I'm still reeling from you saying that. I've gotten texts from people, 614-350-3315 for the last couple of weeks saying I was too hard on Will Howard.
You were.
I've gotten people DMing me saying I was right about Will Howard.
You weren't.
I got a lot of people telling me I was too hard on him. I was just the right amount. A lot of different things. Today was a B- from me. And here's why. I thought today he looked really, really good throwing the football. The touchdown pass to Jeremiah, like right back here, where he aired it out over the defense, hit him in stride. That was his best deep ball of the season. I thought that looked really, really pretty. His offensive line did not help him. His offensive line was just nowhere near good enough today. Ryan Day said that. That's a quote from him. The left tackle situation was bad. I mean, let's just call it what it is. The right guard situation was bad. And I thought he still played pretty well. The interception cannot happen, and that is exactly right why Stephon said that. You go from like an A to, for me, down a letter grade, down probably more of a letter grade in a quarter, letter grade in a third. Because when that happens, that is what can be the difference in a football game. If Nebraska's running back had 6-inch longer arms or was 6 inches closer to the end zone, that's a touchdown. And the game is different because of an interception from Will Howard. So today gets a B- from me today. I thought he looked really sharp in terms of throwing the ball in parts of the game, especially in that first half. I thought he looked pretty good. His offensive line was not helpful. But that mistake, you simply cannot have that mistake. And it did not cost them today. It almost cost them in a game they were 25-point favorites.
6 inches is a lot for some arms, man.
That is.
If the guy was Michael Phelps, he would have picked the ball up, is essentially what you're saying in that situation. I'm going to give him a C+, because that's the first mistake he's made that you can't fix. The other ones, decision-making, right, or dropping a snap, those are like, okay, those are fixable in practice. Just don't do that again. That was a bad throw. It was the right decision. It was just, I can't make that throw. And what do you do with that as a coach? What do you do with that as a player? How do you improve on that? That's where he is kind of flawed in that situation. I know you brought up the Cardinal Tate touchdown pass. Sure, could it have been pushed out a little bit more? Probably. Even he said so after game. But also, they scored a touchdown, man. And also, that's why they have these wide receivers. That's what they do. They turn things that are just okay into awesome touchdowns. That's what they're supposed to do. That's why Brian Hartline recruits at this level.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question on that. So the C+, I don't necessarily disagree with the grade, but when you talk about that's a throw that he can't make, do you feel like you're grading his performance or kind of him as a quarterback?
I think a little bit of both.
Because usually when we're grading him, it's not that he's necessarily making amazing throws. He's doing what he needs to do in this offense, which is often not to have to make amazing throws. That's a throw, though. I agree with you. He's got to make. I don't think it's too difficult of a throw. But do you feel like the C+ is more indicative of him as a quarterback or his performance in this game?
I think maybe 60% the former in that situation, because apparently this is a matchup game. At least that's what Ryan Day called it, and it's a 4-quarter game. And there are going to be moments where he has to do that. Now, should they have had to do that against Nebraska? Probably not, which we'll talk about in another video. But it's going to have to be there, right? And we have seen him be able to do it. Obviously, the Oregon game, he was pretty good outside of a couple of moments there, as you were mentioning. But it's just, when you got to have it, you got to have it. And he didn't have it in that moment. And I think that's why it's so glaring to me, because he was 10 for 10 before that. And he had some other – I thought they tested Will Howard's limits today in terms of how they decided to approach things in the passing game. Now, they didn't get a chance to do it a lot, only 16 passes. But also, Nebraska held the ball for a long time. The offense was off the field for a long time. They had 23 yards in the third quarter on like 10 plays. So it's not like they were playing a bunch of ball. But it's just – I felt like we spent all week – not us, but a lot of people asking Will Howard about his ability to push the ball down the field, and Ohio State finally did it today, and he had some good moments, but he also had a moment where it's like, that needs to just be a better throw. You have to make that throw. So when I add that context to it, that's what took it from a B- to a C+ for me. We'll continue to have this conversation on Buckeye Talk, so go find that wherever you listen to podcasts, and get the text 614-350-3315. Ohio State 21, Nebraska 17. I'm Steven, that's Stephon, that's Andrew. See you later.